You are listening to the Young Black Travelers podcast. Black voices talking on experiential travel, dedicated to creating a global community of travelers. So, be bold, be inspired, be spontaneous. We are YBT.
Welcome to the Young Black Travelers podcast. I'm your host, Toni Ann, and we also have
Asshur. You guys know me. I'm the founder of Young Black Travelers, and I just love to be here talking to you guys about everything travel.
And tonight we are going to be talking about his travels to
Japan.
and we're going to just make some connections about, between Japan and when I lived in South Korea. So stay tuned as we talk, laugh.
Yeah. Everything Japan. Yeah.
Everything Japan. All right. So before we get into the nitty gritty of it all, Asshur. My first.
By the way, before you go on, Toni, I have to tell them. So, and for those of you who are going to be watching this, we're all sipping. Cheers, Toni. And so we are sipping on a rum punch that I made. It's not Japanese. There was no sake in there or anything. But, it's a little bit spiced rum punch. I'm trying to get into my rum punch game. I'm not going to give you my recipe, but just want to let you know we are sipping on rum punch.
Well, he's sipping on rum punch. I'm sipping on some water.
With some Vinci rum in here.
I'm being good today. All right. So, Asshur, before we get into the nitty gritty of it all, my first fun question for you is, out of all the travels you have had, what has been the most exciting experience you've had?
Wow. Wow. Most exciting? I guess I always go back to study abroad.
Oh.
I think studying abroad in Argentina was one of my best experiences traveling. I mean, I was in Argentina for about a month, and a month doing everything that students do, young people do, just having a great old time while you're studying. So I would say study abroad, tops it all.
So when you say doing everything that young people love to do, Asshur.
Oh boy. I didn't open a can of worms, but I mean, we honestly were just having a good time.
Okay.
A really good time. We were, we weren't boring students. And I think I went with a really fun group of people.
Okay.
They, fun people. Okay. They like to party. They like to have a good time. Okay. They were the ones who knew where to go, what to do. They were the ones who, I think it was that trip that really sparked my interest to travel, because it was there that, not like travelers now, we hop around typically. Like if we go to a destination like Argentina, we're going to probably think about going to Uruguay. We're probably going to think about going to Brazil. That's what travelers do. They think about maximizing their trip in its entirety. And so I remember while I was in Argentina, Watson and Armani, everybody, they would be like, we're going to, before we go, we're going to Uruguay. And they talked about going to Falls of Iguazu. So I ultimately went to Iguazu Falls. Okay. So yeah, that's probably why.
Okay, here we go.
There are other great trips after then, like Amsterdam, but Argentina.
You're not about to roll over that as if Amsterdam doesn't have a reputation. Asshur.
So this is going to be a podcast episode. Like I'm going to record a podcast episode with another YBT member, Simone, not Simone, who you all know.
Okay.
Talking about, I think, the goodness of God and something along this line, because Amsterdam was that. That's the reason why we're talking about just, sometimes you wonder how you made it out. Yeah. How you made it over?
The goodness of the Lord.
God is always with us, I tell you, because that was Amsterdam. It was, you will hear a lot more about that trip soon. But it was a ball of time. It was a ball of fun.
Okay, and with that, we could take a quick little break before we come back and jump into Japan.
Japan, stay with us.
Welcome back. We are now going to jump into his Japan travel.
Ooh, come on, Japan.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready for these questions?
Me ready for it. Me ready.
All right. So, first question out of my many is, what, in your opinion, was the best way to travel around Japan while you were there?
Wow, that's a really good question, Toni. And I think especially it's a good one because I think typically Americans, people from the West, when we travel, we don't necessarily recognize that in most countries outside of America, and when I say people from the West, I'm talking about Caribbean people and Americans typically, Canadians, I think as well. I think the culture in these two countries particularly is to drive to the airport. Yes. You know, when someone lands somewhere, Toni, come pick me up. Yes. That's normal. Uber is here now where everybody's used to the Uber culture now. So thank God for Uber. But I would say in Japan, just like probably many countries in Asia and Europe, the metro system is like big and it is amazing. It's beautiful. It is just how people get around. And so I would say that's how anyone should get around Japan, the metro.
So would you just say specifically the metro, or would you also include like the buses?
So I personally don't like buses. Oh. I am not a fan of taking buses. And it's a me thing. So I would typically, whenever I'm traveling anywhere, even here in New York, the bus will be the last thing that I would try to take. Yeah, I'm just not a fan. And I don't know. I just don't like it. So, but I would say when I was Googling my directions in Japan, I wasn't necessarily finding bus directions. So there was just a lot of train lines everywhere.
Gotcha.
And I can't remember seeing buses. Now that you asked me that, I really just can't remember. I just know, like typically I Google and then it would take me to the train. And then that's how I got around.
That's interesting because when I was living in South Korea, it would be a balance of both. So the train and the bus. And they were both on point, top tier. Yeah. The buses came on time. The trains came on time. So.
And so I'm not saying they don't have buses. I just can't remember because probably I wasn't looking for them.
Gotcha.
And I would assume that Japan has buses. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So our next question is your first night in Japan. What did you do? Or where did you go?
Oh, okay. First night, we're sipping on this rum punch, as we go along. Toni with her water. First night in Japan, what did I do? So I went to Japan during the Christmas break here in America and around the world. And so I actually arrived in Japan on Christmas Day. So when you're coming from New York, it's like I think a 10 or so hour time difference. So, though it was Christmas Eve here and I may have left. So I left on Christmas Eve. I got there on Christmas Day, close to the end of Christmas Day. It was just so weird. So I got there like at 3 p.m. or something along that line.
Okay.
And so I would say, I'm not sure if this is one of your questions, but it was shocking to get to Japan and not be in the Christmas spirit.
That was going to be my next question.
So I won't. So I'll hold off on that, right?
Okay.
But what we did was, honestly, I think we try to find KFC because apparently Kentucky is a Christmas tradition in Japan.
Really?
Yes, it's a Christmas tradition. It's a big thing. On Christmas Day, people go to KFC and they line up, and it's there are lines and they have to place orders. You may not be able to get KFC because just everyone go for KFC. It's the West. That's how they view Westerners.
Wow.
So KFC for them is the Americanization of Japan or in Japan.
Okay.
So I think we thought about going to KFC, but obviously by this time all KFCs were booked and it just wasn't going to happen. So we stayed central to one of the temples. And so we basically just got up and walked out to try to find food. And in that area, there's just a lot of restaurants. And so we found ourselves at a nice little restaurant where we can get some Japanese food for our first night.
Okay. And question, before I go into my next question. You were in Tokyo or?
In Tokyo.
Okay.
Tokyo.
So you went to Tokyo.
So we flew so Tokyo has two airports. Haneda is where we flew into. And so we flew Delta. By the way, so we flew Delta. And so I wasn't pausing because Delta was bad, but because we love Delta over here. We love Delta. So Tokyo has two airports, Haneda and Narita. And so Haneda is closest to the city. Narita is a little bit further. But again, they're all connected. Just know that your commute time from Narita may be a little bit longer than Haneda.
Okay. And so what were the main differences during that Christmas season between Japan and here?
So yeah, we're just about to get into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't think about how different our world is. Sometimes you look at our world from your lens. And I think that's why traveling is important. So, as an American, as a Jamaican, you are, as a Vincentian, I am very Western Christian-centered societies. Yeah. We typically look at the world from these angles.
Yeah.
And so I read and I saw YouTube videos just about how Japan they don't celebrate Christmas because they are typically, I think, Shinto and just some other, I think, Buddhist Eastern religions. So I probably went there, didn't expecting that at least, I would have, seeing Santa's on the street, hearing Christmas music. I was actually expecting that a little, even though I know, because sometimes there's a commercialization of the holiday. Yeah. And so commercialization of the holiday is, Santa's everywhere, and all of that. That's what I actually expected when I heard that it is very commercialized.
Gotcha.
But when I got there, I'm telling you, there was no Christmas lights. There was probably just certain commercial districts that may have Christmas lights. There were no Christmas lights. It just didn't seem like the people were in the Christmas spirit.
Gotcha.
And coming from New York, Jamaica, St. Vincent, Canada.
Everything light up.
Everything light up. You feel Christmas.
Yes.
And certain countries, you feel it more than others. Like last year, I went to Canada for Christmas and I just feel like the Canadians are just in a Christmas spirit, probably from October on. Like they are in the Christmas spirit. And in Japan, I felt like it was another day. And so I feel that was a little bit depressing for me as a person who loves Christmas, one of my favorite holidays. And here I am, not feeling in the Christmas mood. It could be because I just traveled and just flew all these miles. So I was tired and I'm here. But I honestly believe it's simply because they do not celebrate the holiday. And you didn't feel like it was Christmas.
Gotcha.
So that was one of the biggest shocks, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Then, how did you navigate that? Like, I'm sure you didn't go through the rest of the night feeling down. So how did you
How did I navigate that?
how did you navigate that? Even though they weren't really celebrating it, how did you still manage to celebrate it in your way and still manage to give yourself that sense of Christmas?
Honestly, I don't think I navigated it. Well, from the angle of I recognized that Christmas isn't a thing in Japan. And here I am in a country where they're not celebrating it. I think what could have helped maybe was the next day, because remember, like the time, there's a time difference.
Yeah.
So when it was Christmas there in Japan, it was Christmas Eve in New York. And so by the time it was Christmas in New York, you know, you probably got these text messages, Merry Christmas, da da da.
Get all the emojis.
Yes. So
Gotcha.
that could have been the thing that helped. But again, this was the next day. I was already like moving on into, you know, what I needed to get done in Japan. So that may have been the answer. But I did think, you know, it did help. It did help.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. I'd say from when I was in South Korea, Christmas was a thing. It wasn't as prominent as here, but it was still definitely a thing. They had the trees up, had the decorations up. They had it. It felt like Christmas.
Okay.
You know? Now, Thanksgiving was just a regular old day. It was nothing.
Makes sense.
There was nothing.
I got you.
But Christmas
was a thing.
There was a little, it was there. You felt the presence.
Okay. Okay, so maybe South Korea is a place to go in Asia around that time.
Is.
Because
I can recommend.
Yeah,
yes.
because I think for me on this trip, I think that was one of the lessons that I got at the end. You know, as travelers, if something is important to you, then you have to recognize that maybe there are other possible places you can go.
Yeah.
And so again, do your research, listen to podcasts like this, because that's how you're going to learn and you're going to really get the real. Yeah, because I don't know if I had listened to a podcast and someone talking about just how much you don't feel like it's Christmas in Japan on Christmas Day, maybe I would not have gone. And maybe I would have chosen South Korea. So if Christmas or a certain holiday or a certain thing is important to you, then make sure you're researching these things for destinations, because they're alternatives, because South Korea was an alternative. And actually during that time, South Korea was an option. But I think the reason why we chose Japan was because I think the temperatures in South Korea are colder than Japan.
So depending on where you go. So in Busan, it wasn't too bad. Now in Seoul, it was cold.
Yeah, it was like, I think when I saw it, it was like cold. 20 and even the teens.
It was cold
in Fahrenheit.
In Seoul. But in Busan, you can survive.
Okay.
You can.
So Busan is the place.
Busan is the place to be. I will scream it from the mountaintops from here to Timbuktu. Okay.
Head to Busan.
Yes, go to Busan. All right. So, next question I've been wanting to ask. While you were in Japan,
okay,
did you by chance happen to use the vending machines?
Wow. Yes, I mean, you know, they're everywhere and they're for everything. You know, I think the first time I actually used a vending machine was for coffee. We were going to Fuji and we stopped at the rest stop and to get coffee, and I look and then there's this vending machine and I'm like, really, a vending machine for coffee? How? And in my mind, I'm like, how is this gonna work? Because, you know, you're thinking hot beverage, how is it gonna come? Where's the cup coming from? Yes. All of these things. And Toni, what I'm telling you, it was a really good cup of coffee. Ooh. Really good cup of coffee. The coffee came out well covered and everything.
Okay.
And And yeah, so I used the vending machine for that. I used the vending machine. I think we were going to a ramen spot, and then you had to put your order in at a vending machine before you go inside. So the vending machines are everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, given that you had that experience while you were in Japan, when you came back and you saw the vending machines here, were you bitter? Did you have any animosity towards the vending machines here?
Listen, you always, I think on these journeys, you recognize how backwards we can be over on this side, especially in America. Oh God, I love America. I love my country, my adopted home, but we are not progressive at all. We are, we don't live in the future. Japan lives in the future.
Yes.
And so, when the only thing you honestly get from vending machines over here are like chips and candy, and maybe when you're in college, some cup noodles, some noodle soups, which you have to
Find
hot water, all of that. I'm sure in Japan, if there is cup noodles, they would heat it. It would come out hot, already made.
Yeah.
And so that in itself, I think, was very mind-boggling. Like, how is all of this happening? What is the technology going into this? Because
a vending machine.
In a vending machine. Yeah. The coffee blew my mind. I'm telling you, and you would expect like bad coffee. It was good coffee.
And that's the thing I love about certain places. They take pride in how they deliver. It's not just, okay, it's here and the taste is whatever. No, the quality.
The quality is good. Yeah.
You got some good vending machine coffee.
Some good. Could you imagine if this was New York, America, anywhere in the States? I'm sure coffee from the vending machine was going to be horrible.
Yeah.
It was going to be horrible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay.
There's work to be done over here, I tell you.
All right. So, okay. How long were you in Japan?
Yeah, I was there for about a week and a few days.
Okay. And during that time, what were some other highlights of that trip? Like, did you go see the Tokyo Tower? What are the other highlights?
Yeah, I would say my biggest highlight was to go to Mount Fuji.
Ooh.
Yes. And so before I go there, I would say my week was a short time. I felt like you needed more time because you even asked about the Tokyo Tower. And I attempted to go to the tower, but I think it was literally on my last day, and I just couldn't get up there because it just didn't make sense. I had to pay this amount of money to go up, and literally it meaning like $20.
Okay.
And so I'm like, if I'm only gonna be up there for like an hour, this doesn't really make sense. I'd been planning to go for a few days, but it just really never worked. But the highlight was Mount Fuji. And I would say Mount Fuji, interestingly, on the day we went to Fuji, the tour guide talked about, how God is smiling at us because it seems like there was this cap over Mount Fuji. So like that storybook-esque cap, like sometimes you see Fuji with like literally this Japanese cap around it. Its peak.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. And then you see this and the mountain itself, like snow-capped, like the snow is at the top and then at the bottom it's just like brown. I mean, it's what you see in the pictures, but literally up close. And so that was a highlight on this trip. I would say another highlight, honestly, was the food.
Ooh, okay. Now you're talking my language, the food. All right. So let's jump into the food.
Let's go there.
What was your favorite thing to eat in Japan? Like, was there anything that you had to keep going back and be like, yeah, I want this again?
So, yes, ramen, certainly. Like
I didn't expect another answer.
Right? You get really good ramen in Japan.
You get exceptional
ramen in Japan.
Respect.
My Lord, it's And there are ramen restaurants that have ramen made so many different ways. And interestingly and importantly, I remember my first time having ramen in Japan was at this restaurant, fancy restaurant in this beautiful shopping mall. I think it was around Harajuku, one of those areas. And I would say the ramen there wasn't that great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't, like your mama put her feet in this ramen. But the ramen that was really smacking was the ramen from like the small shops in the little places, the stalls, just the places that, aren't the high-end places. Those were the places you got really good ramen.
That's where all the love is.
Oh my God. I remember we had this ramen with, I don't know if they put milk in there, whatever it was in there, but it was kind of creamy at a certain point. And there was chicken in there. Toni, fried chicken. Japanese fried chicken
is... I'm going to let you finish your... steak.
You're gonna talk about Korean fried chicken? Oh my! Listen, well, I guess they could fry some chicken in that part of Asia. I mean, it was good. Oh my God! And of course, sushi. I had sushi in Japan. Interesting. We went to. They're called sushi go-rounds. And so the chef is there making the sushi, and they just put a plate. They put each sushi on a plate and it just goes around. Yeah. And you pick up the plate that you want with maybe that one roll and you eat it. So it's like all you can eat, but you're paying per plate, which is not horrible.
Okay.
It's not horrible.
Okay.
So like it's fresh. He's making different sushis and it's just coming around. Really beautiful experience.
All right. Cool.
But to the Asian Korean chicken.
Listen. Korean fried chicken had me in a chokehold. The 2 years that I was living there, there was this place that was literally like down the block and around the corner from my apartment. Oh, morning, noon, and night.
Oh God, you go every day. Jesus, 3 times a day to get some fried chicken.
Day. When I said the chicken,
it good.
Was good.
Oh God,
it was good. I miss you, Korea.
Well, you're going back. We're going to do a podcast on you and Simone. By the way, Toni is holding true to her promise to go back to South Korea. Yes. And when are you guys going?
We are going at the ending of August.
Yes.
So the last week of August, we're going to, touch in. We're going to go to Busan, check out my old stomping ground, visit. I'm going back.
Can't wait to hear about that trip.
Listen, the food is going to be
heavenly.
Wow. Yeah. Now, were there any desserts that caught your taste buds? You must have tried desserts.
I'm not a dessert fan, but because I typically won't go and pick up desserts, but I would say, hold on, give me a moment. I'm trying to remember. Yes. So and this was from like a local Japanese place. I think it was Starbucks. And again, you try these little places. We went and I think I got like the matcha cake or something along that line. And it was really good. Obviously, their pastries are really good as well because I've had those with coffee. And let me say this, Japan has these pancakes.
Yes.
Japan has these pancakes. Yeah. They are really good. Like there was a spot, I'm going to get the name of it and I'm going to put it in the description for you guys. We went there for breakfast. I'm telling you, God, the pancakes were slapping. It's better than, your IHOP, your Denny's, whatever.
It's different. It's
different. Oh my God, the pancakes, it's a little bit thicker. And it's really good.
Fluffy.
Yes. God. I think, if you're a foodie, Japan, you would love Japan. And I think that was one of my things that I was a little bit fearful about Asia. I was because there are 2 things I was fearful about with Asia, particularly.
Okay.
I was fearful about the language Not so much like people talking to me, because obviously I know I can't understand you. Like if I go to Spain, you're speaking Spanish. I know a little bit of Spanish. I may be able to get by, but that wasn't the fear. But it's more so reading it.
Yeah.
And so I was fearful that here I am going to a country where I honestly can't literally understand. That is one. Like in Spanish and English, one is one, right? Like the number one is one. So I was a little bit nervous. And so I'm like, okay, how am I going to deal with that? So that was one fear. And then the food was a big question for me. I didn't know much about Japanese. I mean, yeah, we have Japanese restaurant, but I think sometimes in your mind, you're thinking, is it just sushi? And I do like sushi, but there's so much more to the food than sushi.
And it's different.
It's very different. And it's so good. It's so good. So I think foodies are going to love Japan. Foodies are going to love Japan.
And us foodies, we love Korea too.
Got you. So Korea's next on my list.
How have you not gone yet? And it's so close to Japan.
Listen, well, as I was telling you earlier on, over the summer, I'm deciding what it's going to be, and it could be a stop in Korea and to another country. So let's see.
Okay, there we go. And in my own defense, the reason I haven't been to Japan, even though I was in South Korea for 2 years, was because it was during the
pandemic.
Yeah, but you know they don't like you saying that word. So
they don't like it over
the panorama. It was during. Wow! Wow!
Crickets for the panorama. That was a good one. Oh, for those of you who are watching, you probably didn't hear the crickets.
Oh, man. Yeah, so.
Actually, what I should have done was.
Oh, man. The drum roll.
Drum roll.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I wasn't able to go because everything was shut down, essentially. And I was going to try and squeeze it on this trip, but we agreed that we would just enjoy Busan and then plan a separate Japan trip.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense. Because there's a lot to see and do in Japan. And as I said, like we were there for a week and we were planning, everyone will tell you when you're going to Japan. Some people like Tokyo, some people like the other parts of Japan. Like people will talk about Osaka. Osaka is a must-see place. And again, the cultures it's very different. Well, not the cultures are different. It's more cultured in places like Osaka. Yeah. Tokyo is very city. Yeah. But what is interesting about Tokyo, and I don't think I've ever seen this in all of my travels, is just how much East meets West, how much culture and tradition meets modernity. I think that was one of the things that stood out to me in Japan. And so you'll see in Tokyo this juxtaposition between like architecture and culture as well, because you're seeing people in Japan who are walking around in Tokyo, who are walking around with their kimono. And you're like, oh, wow. Like we thought that was old. And then you're also seeing people in suits. Yeah. And so our dresses. And then you're like, this is interesting. And then you're seeing temples next to skyscrapers. But what I learned about Osaka, you're seeing the tradition. It's more culture rich, or what we would consider more culture rich in Osaka. Things are different there. So Japan in itself is big and it takes a lot of time. We didn't take the bullet trains. Yeah, we didn't take the bullet trains because we would have taken it to go to Osaka and those places. But maybe on the next trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for our final question, Asher, what or are there any tips regarding etiquette that you would advise tourists to practice while in Japan?
Wow, that's a good one, Toni. Let me say the Japanese people are very respectful. and they're also very westernized as well. So I think many things that you would do in the West, they will do there too. But I think one of the things that stood out to me most, it's the act of bowing. And that was the most shocking thing to me. And I think that's the thing that you have to put at the front of your mind as an etiquette to do when you go there. They're typically going to bow to you as a sign of respect, maybe as a sign of thank you, as a sign of blessings to you, whatever it is. When you go into particularly high-end stores, they bow. You're coming out of Louis and Gucci. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, more in regular store, they're probably not going to do it as much. But any place that I think where there is high expectations of service, you will typically expect like people to be bowing to you. So even restaurants that service is important, they're going to be bowing to you. So I would say expect that. Expect to. And what I need to research, and maybe you could research, because I haven't researched, like, what do you do when they bow to you? Because I think it took me so much off guard. Like every time it happened, I really just was always taken off guard. I bowed back. I bowed back. They'll do, and I'll do that too. And then I remember we're coming out of Gucci, and man, it was like what samurai, those type of, and the man did this long bow. It was slow, and he went all the way down. I was like, wow. I felt like a king. But I also felt guilty. Yeah. Because that's not normal in the US. Yeah. People, I mean, you bow to anybody in the US, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Oh. So, right, why are you bowing? So I would say that's one of the things that you should research. Like, they are going to bow to you. And I wish I had the answer for you. What do you do in that moment? So maybe this is the research that you need to do to what to do in the moment when you are bowed, when someone bows to you, because you're going to expect it. Yeah. And I know you said this is the last question, but I did want to add this before we go. I wanted to say, like, Japan is extremely easy to get around. It's extremely easy to get around. And so remember, I talked about my initial fear of going there and my fear of not understanding things. Well, I think they've thought that part through, because, the first day on the train, I recognize the trains are just like New York, London, Paris, where, you will see the stops. And so in my head, how I was questioning how I was going to read the train stops. Gotcha. Fear, like, how am I going to do this? Where am I going to know where to get off? Everything is going to be in Japanese. But in Japan, they have this numbering system. So each stop has a number. So you will know that your stop is number 1, whatever the name of the station is in Japanese. But all you need to know is you are going to number 1. And you're transferring that number 1 for the yellow line. Yeah. And then you get to the yellow line, and then also that yellow line has 1, 2, blah, blah, blah. Got it. And so that was so seamless, so simple, and it was just easy to get around. When you use Google Maps in Japan, I haven't seen it work like that here in New York, where it tells you the exact exit to get out, or it being as easy to find here in New York as it is in Japan. Each exits are numbered. You're going to get out at exit number 1. And so you walk to exit number 1 to get to wherever you're going to go. So it is so seamless, so simple. And so that's why one of the reasons I loved it. It's easy to get around, easy to understand. People understand you. Yeah. So I don't think you're going to have a hard time communicating to people, because people definitely understand. Even if they're speaking Japanese, they're somehow going to understand what you're trying to say to them. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
Ashur's Japan trip and all the many details. All this excitement.
Yes.
And
you have one more?
I don't. I just drew a blank. My brain went blank.
Don't enjoy.
All right. Well, thank you.
We're going to go to break now.
Yes, we're going to go to break right now. All right. All right. Welcome back.
Yes.
We are about to close
this
it
up.
off. Yes, but before we go, before we run away, there is one final thing I would like to know. So, Asher,
Woo. I'm here.
one final thing we wanted to know is, do you have any recommendations as to what to try or where to go in Japan?
Yes, Tony. I was keeping track. Sometimes I don't write down what I do and all of these things. But I think some of my biggest recommendation, especially if you like shopping, I think you should definitely look at Giza. The Giza area of Japan is a really, really, really nice shopping area. And it was around there that I had my first amazing ramen experience. So definitely go to the Giza area. I would also say, typically when I go abroad, if I'm going to buy clothes or anything, I look for brands that may be local to that area. And so I would say GU or GU is a Japanese brand. Simply GU. I think it's called GU or GU. And you also know that Uniqlo is Japanese. Yes. And so their flagship is in Tokyo. Ooh. And I love that in their flagship, they have a coffee shop and all these things. In their flagship, you can personalize any item that you have. So definitely go so definitely head there to their flagship in Tokyo. But I would also say if you are going to Japan, you definitely need to try to go to an onsen. Oh Lord. Well, this one I would tell you is okay. Let me give you the down and dirty, or the down and clean, because they are very clean places. Yes, but people are typically leery about them simply because, especially Americans, you got to go naked. Yeah, completely naked. So that was a shock. I think to me, initially I was like, oh, naked. Okay. So you condition your mind to this, right? You're about to go into this place naked. Typically they are all male or all females. I don't know if they have them joined.
There isn't a joint one. Not to my knowledge.
So yeah, typically they're going to be separated by sex. And the big thing that you need to know is for many of them, you can't have a tattoo. Yes. I don't know what it is.
It's because of the culture around the Yakuza, the gangs. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you can't have a tattoo for many of them. So you have to look for one that allows you to have tattoo. I remember the one I went to. I mean, you needed to have it didn't allow tattoos, but I think because at that time my tattoo was just, it could be hidden. So I got away. But Lord, I went into the people that man sent with a tattoo. But let me also suggest that you head to the Imperial Palace. Tony talked about the Tokyo Tower. But I think what I actually had tried to get into was the Tokyo Skytree. Okay. That, you also want to do that as well. And listen, Tokyo is littered and Japan is littered with shrines. They're everywhere. Yeah. And so you want to head to one of these shrines. Some of the shrines that we went to were Shinzo-ji or Jai, that we actually were staying close to that. It was literally like down the road. Imperial Palace is also a shrine, and then the High Shrine. Those are some of the shrines that I would certainly suggest that you head to. Yeah. Okay. Or just any shrine that you Google, because they are picturesque and it's something that you're going to do. And one of the things that you would recognize when you go to the shrines, they're typically, a lot of times they're in temples. And so there's a lot happening. So there may be markets at the shrine. I think at Sensoje, there's a whole market there.
Okay.
And you could probably buy all your souvenirs, whatever you got to do. Oh, and this you have to do. But let me tell you guys, you do this, you got to make sure that you like people and that you're okay in people just rubbing up against you, because this place was packed. It was the Suzuki Seafood Market. It was the old seafood market. Basically, that was where years ago they used to do the tuna trade. And so it was popular, I think, until a few years where they closed down the tuna trade because it got so overcrowded. And it was crowded when I went. Like, I'm telling you, like, I've never had a human traffic jam. I've never seen it. But I experienced a human traffic jam for the first time in my life. You couldn't go anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Like, literally, you are trying to get through and you can't go anywhere because there's so many people.
Wow.
In this area. But in this area, there is supposed to be a lot of like really good food and a lot of things to eat. And it's not just seafood, but obviously you'll get a lot of seafood. But again, the tuna trade is not particularly in that area anymore. They've moved it to a different location. Okay. So those would certainly be my recommendations.
Okay. And were there any like snacks you would recommend them trying?
Oh yeah, definitely. So Japan is actually known for Kit Kat in different colors or different flavors. So you could get, strawberry Kit Kat. You could get milk chocolate Kit Kat. Just different, a lot.
You can get matcha too.
Matcha, all flavor. Matcha wasn't my favorite, by the way. I didn't like it. There was,
blasphemy.
But I did not like it. But I love the cherry blossom one. Ooh. It was really nice.
Okay.
So basically you can get those anywhere, like at any grocery store or store where you can buy snacks, you could get those anywhere. So definitely I would recommend, probably as a souvenir, like bring back Kit Kat in different flavors and just distribute those or eat them here. Right? Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Asshur.
You're welcome.
That was quite the exciting.
It's good to be on the other side.
Yes. All right. So, the last thing we're about to do, you already know what it is.
Last thing.
Shout out time.
Yeah. I keep finding the wrong ones there. It is what it is.
It is what it is at this point. All right. So, Asshur, who you about to shout out today?
Yes. So I am shouting out today. We actually met going to Japan. We met when we were in Seattle, and her Instagram is Mafa Rifi. Let me find it for you. Yeah, so we met when we were in Japan, going to Japan in Seattle. She works for Delta. You guys know how I travel sometimes. It was that little connection there. We were all on standby. Okay. Her and Jasmine. And so her Instagram handle is Mafa_Rifi. So that's MAFA_RIFII. And we're shouting her obviously because we met going to Japan, but also she has content on Japan. And so a lot of good content. So if you really are interested in finding out some, just different things about Japan and getting inspiration, then head over to her Instagram page.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And with that, we are about to roll out. Thank you for
Roll
joining
out.
us, laughing with us, chilling and vibing with us. Just reminding you to please support our podcast by simply subscribing and sharing
Share.
to continue
Important.
hearing great stories.
Right?
Okay, share with everyone, with your friends, family.
Where else are they going to get stories like this? Like the real dirty down, convos. That helps them.
Thank you for adding that part.
Yeah, you could get stories, but it helps you, right?
So, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok.
Threads. We're on Threads.
Oh, we're on
Threads. So we are Young Black Travelers. Blog on Threads. We are on Facebook at Young Black Travelers. So yeah, just follow us on all social media platforms and obviously on Instagram at Young Black Travelers Blog.
All right, and with that, we just want to encourage you to stay safe, stay blessed, and have a wonderful week.
Yes, take care.
Bye.